Earlier today, I visited His Excellency the Governor-General and advised him to call an election for the House of Representatives and half of the Senate on May 21.
After months of speculation, we finally have a save the date, as well as a handy reminder of what an election is.
This election is a choice.
And the PM laid out what he believes that choice to be.
It's a choice between a strong economy, between an economic recovery that is leading the world, between responsible financial management and a Labor opposition that you know can't manage money.
Scott Morrison is hoping voters will remember the government's record, and so is Anthony Albanese.
I won't go missing when the going gets tough.
While the coalition's pitch focused on the economy, Labor focused on just about everything else.
We will build more affordable housing. We will fix the crisis in aged care. We will fix the national broadband network, stronger Medicare, cheaper childcare, women's policies on Indigenous affairs. We will end the climate wars.
But all these issues may end up taking a backseat. The war of personality threatening to overshadow the campaign before it's begun, as the coalition tries to paint Albanese as an unknown.
No one knows who Anthony Albanese is. They don't know what he's going to do.
Labor is already pouncing on questions about Morrison's character.
The record shows he's a liar, and the Australian people know he's a liar.
You go into this campaign with a much higher personal disapproval rating.
This election, others will seek to make it about me. It's actually about the people who are watching this right now.
And I'm pleased to say political guru Barrie Cassidy joins us now. So, Barrie, it's finally happening. How dirty do you reckon this one is going to get?
I don't see any reason why it should be any dirty or any more robust than election campaigns in the past. I guess that suggestion has been raised because Scott Morrison's character has come under close scrutiny in the past weeks and months. But most of that has been driven from complaints within the Liberal Party. Sure, the Labor Party have moved to exploit those, but the complaints about the bushfires and the treatment of the flood victims, there's been references going back to his pre-selection 18 years ago. But fundamentally, those character questions arise because the rank and file, a lot of them within the Liberal Party, are upset that he and a couple of others chose to pre-select candidates in about 9 seats, and they see that as the Prime Minister trying to fashion the Liberal Party in his own image. So raising those sorts of things close to an election is damaging. But then last night it got worse when the senior vice president for the federal Liberal Party, Tina McQueen, said of two candidates, Trent Zimmerman and Katie Allen, Liberal Party sitting members, she thought they would lose. And she went on to say, but with a couple of lefties gone, we can go back to our core philosophy. So she was kind of saying that wouldn't be a bad thing because it entrenches the right's authority over the left in the party. Now, that's damaging stuff. And coming from just how you plan to calm tempers within the factions within the Liberal Party when a senior member says that on the night before an election is called, it just astounds me.
Scott Morrison has had a pretty shocking run lately. He's down in all the opinion polls, but he's pulled off miracles before, like that 2019 win that no one thought he could do. Can he do it again?
I think his chances are slim at best. And look, I can't recall any government going into an election this far behind in the polls. I bet there was one they lost. And I think that's because the government is in worse shape now than they were in 2019, and the Prime Minister is in worse shape than he was in 2019. And the polls, we know, were dodgy in 2019 anyway. You would think they've got their act together a bit now and they're a little more accurate. But when I say worse shape, back in 2019, Scott Morrison was popular and he campaigned well. He's not popular anymore because of his handling of so many of the issues and so many crises. Then that's the outcome, to the point, in fact, where at the last news poll, the opposition leader, who we're told is not well known in the electorate, was nevertheless the preferred Prime Minister by a single point, but nevertheless the preferred Prime Minister. That is unusual. So I think for those reasons, he really has got a tough 6 weeks ahead of him.
There's still a big mountain, though, for Labor to climb if they are to win this. They've got to win, I think, 6 or 7 seats to gain majority government. They've actually got quite a lot of ultra-marginal seats they've got to hold on to as well. So this isn't easy for them to do.
No, but if you average out all of the major polls, they're 8 points in front, two-party preferred. Now, Scott Morrison had no choice but to call the election when he did. He's called it for the last possible date. That's partly because he must know that he needs every day that he can possibly get out of the system to try and claw back that kind of lead. So that is a big lead. Let's assume, I can't understand why people assume that the polls are going to be as inaccurate as they were last time. Pollsters run a business. They want to get it right this time. They've changed their methodology, and South Australia, I think, indicated that they're getting much better at it. That was spot on, in fact, in South Australia. So that's a big gap to make up in 6 weeks. The biggest danger for the Labor Party, I think, is that even if they were to get quite a sizable swing, there are a lot of seats that are out of reach just the same. But there's certainly enough well within that range for them not only to win, but to win with a majority.
And even with personal stuff aside, it feels this election more than any other, it's going to be a real wrestle over who controls the narrative. Obviously, the coalition is going to campaign heavily on cost of living and security, Labor, obviously health and the environment, and a ton of other lists that Albanese brought up today. But who do you think is going to win that tug of war to connect with voters best?
Yeah, it's interesting because today I think we saw the Prime Minister take the macro approach and Anthony Albanese take the micro. That is, Scott Morrison talked about economic management, and he talked about low unemployment and climbing growth and so on, and he talked about an electorate that is uneasy with world events. Whereas Anthony Albanese went on the core issues. He talked about climate change, he talked about integrity, the cradle to the grave issues like childcare and aged care. So they're taking a very different approach around that. But at the end of the day, I think what history tells us is that elections are won and lost, not on campaigns, not on budgets, not on one or two issues, but on the performance of the government over the previous 3 years. That's the big one. That's the decision that people make when they go to the polls at election time.
Well, there's a lot that can happen in 6 weeks, but we've got you here. I get a sense of who you think is not going to win. But do you want to call it? Who is it going to be?
No, I won't call it, but I think I've made it pretty clear that this is one hell of a task for the government. One hell of a task.
All right, and we will all be watching. Barrie Cassidy, always great to have you on the show.
Thank you.